Hi guys and welcome to FORGE WRIGHT. Thanks for dropping in. If you haven't seen the channel before, my name's Andy. The channel is based around learning to become a blacksmith, starting as an absolute beginner. I cover setting up the forge, making the tools required to start smithing, learning basic techniques and developing your skills. I also make metal fabrication videos, which can be very helpful when trying to build some of the tools and equipment that you'll need to use in the workshop. So let's roll the intro and get started on today's video. Welcome to part 2 of the forging of the rounding hammer. I have done a bit of an upgrade on the jig that I used last time, jerry-rig jig that I used last time to set the fullers at a precise distance from the billet face. And I'll just bring the camera down and show you the upgrade that I've done to this jig before we get into the forging of the second side of the hammerhead. Right, well here we are looking at it from the end where I'm forging. I'll just do a bit of a pan round at the moment and show you this new setup that I've got here. So pretty well, it's about as basic as a setup can get, but I believe quite effective. These nuts loosen off this plate here, and then this plate slides off here. This is where I have welded 2 bolts to the edge of there. So that's the extent of the technology here. So you can take any number of these washers and slide them on there. So I could put 2 washers on there and 2 washers on there, and then slide your plate back on and have that set at a greater distance away, and tighten up your nuts, and that will be set at that specific distance. So she's a pretty basic system, but very effective. So one really positive thing about this as well is that you can also use it for putting fullers. Say you were making a knife and you wanted to put a fuller down the spine of the knife, you can slide that along there, and of course because of the offset design of the guillotine, it can slide at an exact distance all the way along and all the way through for as long as you want, or at any point if you want to do something here and do something there. Sets that distance from the edge of the material to the fullering point precisely. So yep, thought I'd update you on that, and I'll get on with heating up my billet and we'll continue with this hammer. Righto, so as I said in the beginning, I'll be bringing the other end of my hammerhead in and trying to put in the fullers on the second side. Did the other side in part 1. I'm going to do the same thing, get them even on part 2 initially. Then I'll go back to my drifting block and I will drift out the eye to pretty well its maximum height, just a tad short of where I want it to be. That will then allow me to come in and start forming up the rest of the hammer, getting that nice smooth edged shape, and see if we can get it looking like a rounding hammer. Let's bring him in, gets him at the right height, right level, straight. There we go, just a little start, get him really hot. It's coming a bit better. Okay, time for me to start drifting a bit more of this eye. looking a bit better now. Hole's getting a little bit bigger. We'll keep going though. I've got my bucket on the wrong side. Bloody stupid. Right, so yeah, as you can see, she's right up to there, so my drift doesn't get any wider along that point. If I go too much further, the drift will go straight through, and I don't want it to do that. Righto, after posting part 1 of this video, I had a fair few comments, which is great. Always love to get comments on my videos, and so I can learn and improve. And I was talking to Crawford at Dragonstone German Ironworks, and he was talking about when he did a course with the great Dan Moss, and he was told that the best way to drift the eye is almost to size, which is now what I'm doing, and then fuller at the edge of the eye, which then draws the material forward and rear of the eye downwards. So what I'm doing now is I'm moving to my larger fullers, and because I want to make sure that the fullers are as close to the eye as possible, I've used my packers in here. So what that means is the additional width in the fuller that I'm putting in will be from the existing position towards the eye. So I'm widening the fuller towards the eye, not on an even amount on both sides. Hope that made sense. And thank you, Crawford, for pointing out that quality advice from Dan Moss, who I rate extremely highly as a blacksmith. All right, let's see if we can get this hammer fuller a bit closer to the eye. Yeah, well, it's working. It's definitely bringing that fuller over. I'm obviously going to have to give it a lot more. Prefer that, peeps. Getting there, it's looking better on that side. Time to try some drifting on the bolster. Right, well, I was having a bit of a chat with Len Blacksmith, and we were talking about this bolster that I made and the fact that it's not really made for these rounding hammers. As I think I mentioned earlier on, I use this as a template and the ridges are too close together, so I'm using it, but we were having a discussion about adjustable bolsters. So I'm going to put my mind to that, and I'm going to keep this one, which can be used for smaller hammers with fullers that far apart, but I reckon I will make an adjustable one for the future that can be, that the ridges can be moved closer or further apart. So spot on, Len. I'll give it a go, mate. Start to move them out a bit. Might use the ball peen hammer on it, I reckon. Sorry, not the ball peen, the cross peen hammer on it, I reckon. Right, well, I think that's drawing that cheeks down quite nicely. So I'll heat up the other side and start working on that. Just saying, I think that works better than doing it with the guillotine tool. Just using the cross peen, learning how to do that, I think that might be a better way to go. Righto. Put the drift on that side. See if we can start. Right, the plan now is to put the drift in it, just tidy up a couple of marks on the cheeks and then put a touch mark in it. Set up. Probably coming along okay. I'm going to fix up the fullers again, put it in my guillotine tool, redo those fullers to the depth that I want, put the proper corners in the edges of the fullers, take some of these sharper edges out of it as well, grind in the faces, and we might be able to call it a hammer. Okay, just going to get the Dremel with a bit of a, it's actually quite worn out, I might have to swap it for another one looking at that. Just a little sanding disc, and I'm just going to get in here and clean up around here. If this doesn't work very well, I'll just use a burr. So I'll give this a go, see how we go. I'm not going to show you much of this. Everybody's seen grinding and sanding and things like that, so yeah, I won't put much of this in the video. Okay, well that sanding, little sanding wheel was very knackered, so I decided I'd change it up for a little grinding wheel. Tiny little things, only about 10 mil. Give this a go instead. There you go. There you go. For me, who's never done this sort of stuff before, and others who might be wanting to do the same thing. Don't know if you can see it, but the thing just came out and ran straight across there and put a nice little groove in there. So I'll have to watch out for that. Okay, well that's taking it out quite nicely. It's put a very sharp edge on there though. I'll have to clean that up, smooth that sharp edge off afterwards. It'll just dig into the handle. There we go, this is what we're looking like. Just opened up that side. This side hasn't been done cleaning up around in here. But yeah, that's how she's looking. I'm pretty happy with my first attempt at a hammer. Hasn't been hardened or heat treated yet. I want to get most of the work done on it, then I'll heat it back up, harden it, and then heat treat it. So going to be using a reasonably worn out, it originally was a 40 grit flap disc, but she's been grinding a hell of a lot and there's not 40 grit on there anymore. It's probably more like about 120 or even finer. So that's where I want him off. This is a Scotch Brite, but as I say, I've only got the coarse at the moment, so I'll give that a go, see how that pulls it off, but I don't want to be too rough with it. That's a lot rounder. The irony is I'm getting a better finish with the old worn out flap disc than I am with the Scotch Brite because it's a coarse Scotch Brite. Right, I can start working on these troughs in here. I should say fullers in here, and a bit of work around in the edges of here, just around the depressions around the eye where the eye has been pulled down. Okay, well, first of all, please excuse the disgusting state of my workshop. Haven't had much time to get in here and actually do any cleaning. So the only little bit of time I've got is to actually do something on my hammer. So I'm taking that opportunity rather than cleaning up. Just got a bit of bar stock in the forge to preheat my oil. I'm going to heat treat the hammer now. I've done the sanding on it, grinding on it. Got all radiuses the way I want it, got it cleaned up. Probably didn't show you much of that in the video because everybody's seen grinding. So now I'm going to take that bit of bar stock out. Don't need it too hot, and heat up the oil. So I've got the hammerhead in there. It's been soaking, getting a good soaking heat through it, and it's already been normalized in just the open air. I let it cool down in the forge, so it would cool down really slowly. So you could probably call that annealing. I did the normalizing the first time, and then what I'm calling annealing, did it in the forge by just turning the forge off and letting it cool down overnight. Now I'm taking it back up to temperature to do the hardening. Right, let's heat up this oil. I'm aware I probably should be wearing some sort of respirator. In fact, I'll get that sorted now. So what I'm going to do, now that I've got it past critical, is bring it back to where it's just about, it is just beginning to get magnetic again. Then I'll put it in, heat her up just a little bit more, and then dunk it. Yep, just starting to get magnetic. get the faces clean so I can see the colour run. Yeah, we've got a straw colour coming through. Oh, we've got a nice blue. Not dark, but it's a mid-range blue. I'm happy with that. Alright. In the water. So I hardened it in oil, brought the temperature back up to that nice dark blue, and now I've stopped that temper run in water, hoping it stops it nice and fast. And all I want to see when I pull it out is no cracks.
Somehow managed to lose all the audio for this bit of footage, but I thought I'd show a bit of footage of the beautiful colour that came through in the tempering process. It's a lovely blue colour. On the other side over here you can see there's a little bit of purple as well that's come through, so it probably got a little bit warmer than I'd want on this side, but as you can see, mostly all beautiful blue. When you look at the body of it itself, there's a bit of wire wheel work to do, some scale and whatnot in the fullers, but nothing serious. I will also get it into the vise and do a bit of sanding on the hammerheads themselves. I'm hoping I've got a really nice temper to this hammer. Giving it a grind with a worn out flap disc right now, just around the outside edges of the hammerheads themselves. I'm going to leave the body of the hammer the way it is because I think it looks good. Okay, time to have a bit of a look at it. Even though it's only a flap disc finish, I think it turned out pretty good. There's a few scratches in there, but I can get them out later when I get my Scotch-Brite. Time to make a handle and a wedge and get it fitted up.
Righto. Whoops, kicked the camera. Just cut this out of here. So making myself a wedge, as you can see, and I stuck it in the vise and got my, excuse me a second, my sharp chisel here, and I cut some grooves into both sides of it along there. The vise also put some nice handy little indentations in it. I didn't use this vise, I used the bench vise, which puts some little indentations into there as well, which will help grip. So that's so when it goes in, it doesn't want to slide back out again. Forgot to record that. Sorry guys. I've got my wedge down in there. Right. Nearly, I want to get the edges of it flush with the dip in there. So I'll keep going a little bit more. That looks pretty good. I know this is risky, but I reckon I can give it a go, get most of it out, and then try and sand the rest out. Dremel maybe. Get him down the rest of the way. That's not down all the way there. So there you have it. the finished product. I think that has turned out pretty good for a first hammer, first ever effort.
Right now, I'd like to take the time to dedicate the forging of this rounding hammer to a young Tasmanian blacksmith by the name of Aidan. My grandson Aidan may only be 8 years old, but he is totally dedicated to becoming a blacksmith. Aidan doesn't yet have his own anvil, and he doesn't even yet have his own forge, but with a lot of determination, he's already managed to make his first knife, which is something that I haven't been able to do yet, so you stick at it, mate, because I'm really proud of you.
Well, there you go. It's taken a long time, but there's my hammer project completed. I've made all the tools that you'd need to make a hammer, and now I've made the hammer. And as you can see, here's my first ever hammer. Rounding hammer, so nice smooth round radius on that side, nice and flat on that side. I'll bring it in here so you can see it quite accurately. I think the light's pretty good in here. It was a bit hard to tell, but that's what we have. Few mistakes. It's got a few glitches in it. I think you can see right in here, there's a little dimple in there that I can't get out without grinding away too much material. And a few tiny little dings and scratches in here that I don't want to take out, once again, too much material. Yeah, just a little mark in there, and gee, minor stuff. The fact that it's not perfectly set in the middle. It's straight, but it's not perfectly set in the middle, as in one of these cheeks is a little bit wider than the other cheek. But for a first hammer, I'm incredibly happy. In fact, quite proud of it. And I'd like to thank everybody who has been supporting me and watching the channel for having the patience to sit through the length of my videos. Yet another long video here, but I thought I'd make it long enough to be able to show the process of actually finishing making this hammer. I'm going to attempt to try and keep the videos much shorter from this point on, and we'll see how we go with that. But thanks again for watching. If you like what you see, you like the content, and haven't subscribed already, please do. If you have subscribed, thank you for your support, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye for now.